Shabbat Shalom. There's a glass, and it's filled to the middle with water. The optimist looks at the glass and says, "This glass is half full." The pessimist looks at the glass and says, "This glass is half empty." The engineer looks at the glass and says, "That glass is twice as big as it needs to be." When we read Torah, some enter into discussion with one of the first two mindsets. Either Torah is just about family lineage, death, destruction, war, and arcane practices that leave me feeling empty. Or Torah always has something to teach us so that we are left feeling spiritually full. Others, such as Thomas Jefferson, take the engineer's approach and choose to edit the Torah so that it's only as big as it needs to be. In general, though, Judaism prefers a different mindset called Hakarat Hatov, literally seeing the good. Hakarat Hatov, seeing the good, does not mean that we don't see the bad. Surely we acknowledge the bad. Instead, though, when we notice ourselves getting to a place where we only see the glass as half empty, Hakarat Hatov, seeing the good, tells us that we also need to see the glass as being half full. In this week's Torah portion, Chayei Sarah dies. Isaac marries Rebekah after Abraham's servant Eliezer discovers her at the well. And then Abraham dies. A narrow read of this Torah portion would point us to the sadness in the deaths of our matriarch and our patriarch. But the value of Hakarat Hatov implores us to look at the Torah with a closer eye, with a more nuanced understanding. And when we do, we notice something really profound, as this clip from the West Wing shows us.
Well, this.
Sarah, God said to Abraham, "Look toward the heaven and number the stars, and so shall your descendants be." But Abraham's wife, Sarah, wasn't getting any younger, and God wasn't coming through on his promise. I was very young when I had my kids. I was very, 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 very young. I was barely even born yet when I had my oldest daughter, Elizabeth. Anyway, Sarah was getting older, and she was getting nervous because she didn't have any children. So she sent Abraham to the bed of her maid, Hagar. And Abraham and Hagar had Ishmael. And not long after they did, God kept his promise to Sarah, as he'd always intended to. And Abraham and Sarah had Isaac. And Sarah said to Abraham, "Cast out this slave woman with her son, for the son of the slave woman will not be heir with my son Isaac." And so it began. The Jews, the sons of Isaac. The Arabs, the sons of Ishmael. But what most people find important to remember is that in the end, two sons came together to bury their father.
I think most people also find it important to remember that the whole thing took place about 73 million years ago.
Yeah.
It's true. When we read our Torah portion, we often overlook these verses. When Abraham breathed his last, dying at a good ripe old age, old and contented, and he was gathered to his kin, his sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave of Machpelah. If you have a complex and complicated history and relationship with your family, I'm sure you can probably empathize with this moment. As Rabbi Stephen Kushner teaches, both Isaac and Ishmael had reason to be absent from their father's funeral. This is the same Abraham, after all, who cast out Ishmael and abandoned him to the wilderness. And this is the same Abraham who tried to slaughter Isaac only to be stopped at the last moment by an angel of God. Both sons could have found a very convenient excuse to stay away, to let somebody else bury their dad. But they came together to honor their father. Surely there were issues between them, but for the sake of honor, for the sake of a bigger purpose, Isaac and Ishmael came together to bury their father. They saw the good through honor. I have to admit that this week it was challenging to see the good. This week we saw the horrific beast of anti-Semitism rear its very ugly head. From hundreds of incidents of vandalism and intimidation to CNN declaring on their news ticker, alt-right founder questions if Jews are people, to images of groups of neo-Nazis in D.C. giving a Nazi salute as they chanted, "Heil Trump." Not for nothing, we also saw massive wildfires in Israel. Some started naturally, some started by arson. And a horrible hate crime against Reformed Jewish leaders in Israel. So what do we do with a week like this? We acknowledge that this is not normal. We recognize these painful stories, and then we look for the good. Well, we can't change the glass we are shown. We can change how we view the glass. Now, this does not mean that we need to reconcile all of our issues. After all, Isaac and Ishmael did not reconcile when they buried their father. But they did come together for the sake of honor. For the sake of honoring our country, we need to see some of the good that came out of this week. We need to see that this week, Ariel Gingold, representing Bend the Ark, a DC organization that lobbies on behalf of Jewish values, came together with the Muslim Public Affairs Council to deliver a petition signed by more than 27,000 Jews, Muslims, and allies demanding that white nationalists have no role in the White House. A delegation of faith leaders and Mayor Garcetti stood with the Islamic Center of Southern California, and we at Kol Ami have continued the work of building bridges with our neighbors and friends of all faiths. I am sure that just yesterday, you also acted with the value of Hakarat Hatov, seeing the good, when you sat at your Thanksgiving table and offered gratitude for everything in your life. This was a difficult week, and yet it emulated the rhythm of Jewish time in a way. In the midst of all the terrible things this week brought about, we took stock of and named what we are grateful for. We lived out Hakarat Hatov yesterday. We saw the good. Hakarat Hatov does not mean that when we read the Torah of our lives that we neglect the sadness and grief of Sarah and Abraham's death, nor the joy of Isaac and Rebekah's union. Rather, we take whatever strength we can gather and we move forward. We see the good. We hope. We emulate Isaac and Ishmael. We come together. We put aside our differences, and we come together for the sake of honoring something much bigger than ourselves. We look at the glass filled with water to the middle and say, how lucky we are that we have a glass, and how lucky we are that it has some water. Shabbat Shalom. I'd like to offer a piece that was written by Jason Robert Brown called Hope. I come to sing a song about hope. I'm not inspired much right now, but even so, I came out here to sing a song, so here I go. I guess I think that if I tinker long enough, one might appear. And look, it's here. One verse is done. The work's begun. I come to sing a song about hope. In spite of everything ridiculous and sad, though I'm beyond belief depressed, confused, and mad, well, I got dressed. I underestimated how much that would take. I didn't break until right now. I sing of hope and don't know how. So maybe I can substitute strength, because I'm strong enough. I got through lots of things I didn't think I could, and so did you. I know that's true. And so we sing a song about hope, though I can't guarantee there's something real behind it. I have to try to show my daughter I can find it. And so today, when life is crazy and impossible to bear, it must be there. Fear never wins. That's what I hope. See, I said hope. The work begins. Shabbat Shalom. I'd like to